First off, I want to thank the library for inviting me. This is an interesting venue, and I appreciate the time to have with you to discuss this particular topic. And it is a timely topic. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the Snowden revelation, sometimes called the Summer of Snowden, and it continues on. It seems to continue on. And I wanted to discuss how the data is procured and then how it might be analyzed. And I think this is really interesting for us, not only from, I think most of what we hear is the backlash about it, but I'd like to also offer the counter argument that it might actually serve us in some way too. Now, your perspective on this may differ. I mean, even though I will present the case of it may be beneficial for you, you might say it's not worth it to me, and that's certainly valid. So, of course, this is not going to, let's see. All right. So privacy, I want to talk about privacy just really generally. The common argument that we hear when we discuss NSA's procurement of this data is that, well, if you get nothing to hide, then there's no reason you should be worried about it. Well, why do we have privacy in the first place? It protects against repression. That's one of the things that we're most worried about. That's why our forefathers put it into the Constitution. It also allows for free exchange of ideas. Right? If I know that I'm being watched, maybe I won't be as willing to reveal some information. Isn't that the basis of voting? Right? You don't have anonymity when you vote, but you do have privacy. Right? When you're in the booth, you're allowed to vote for wherever you like, but you do have privacy. So allow for personal choices. Allows you to make decisions based upon your life. Using information without consent. If we don't allow for privacy, then I could use your information for any way I wish. And maybe that's not okay with you. I do quite a bit of research, and whenever I do research on individuals, and I'm doing a survey, I let them know, hey, you have anonymity, you have privacy, I'm not going to reveal that you said this. Right? We do this in student evaluations too, and we're trying to incite the truth from them, right? And isn't that what we want in some respects? Protects against misinformation. If you listen to a part of this, I'm sure some of us have heard about some of the cases that have come to light, but if you heard a piece of the information, didn't hear the whole story, maybe that might be some misinformation. For example, recently a journalist was looking up pressure cookers. She wanted to buy a pressure cooker. Soon after, her husband was looking for a backpack, looked up a backpack, and they got a knock at the door by the FBI. Wanted to know why they were looking up pressure cookers and backpacks. As you remember, the pressure cookers within a backpack was used for the Boston bombings, and they were concerned that it might be a copycat. But that's a little bit of a misinformation. We've got lots of data, but how accurate is it? All right, privacy is different than secrecy, something that is really important. I think sometimes we assume that they are synonymous, but really they are different. And just because you want privacy doesn't necessarily mean that you need secrecy. And as humans, we certainly need privacy. Why do we put curtains on our windows? Well, we certainly don't want anyone leering in or, something of that nature. But I worked in private security years ago, and I learned from one of my bosses early on, when you're watching somebody under the belief that they are private, they do really private things, and you may not want to see those things. So I moonlighted while I was in the military. I moonlighted as a security guard, and we had cameras in all different places. And we told the employees we can put cameras anywhere. We had this one hidden camera that was to watch for theft. And when people thought they were alone, they did some things that, well, let's face it, all of us do, but nobody wants anyone else seeing someone doing it. And I think about that when I think about privacy. Some things are okay, we just don't want everyone to know about it, right? So what about intelligence functions as it relates to privacy? So there are two different things here. We got intelligence and we've got law enforcement, and they are separated. Intelligence, we're really looking for learning general information, specific information to prevent a particular event. If we think that a specific undesirable event is going to occur, we may act on that intelligence information. So we may want to know from an intelligence standpoint whether there's political stability. That's really important for us, particularly those within Homeland Security. We want to make sure there's political stability in a particular country, and how can we garner that political stability. Political will. We might want to know what the people's will is and how best to serve them, whether it's in another country or our own. Trends. Maybe there's something going on within a particular society, and we want to follow those trends and where they might end up. And as you think about all the conflicts that we've had recently, you can imagine why this might be very helpful for us. Election outcomes. With enough data, we can actually start predicting election outcomes, maybe even characteristics of politicians. And then feedback is great too. Once we've implemented something, maybe we've changed some policy, foreign policy, domestic policy, we want to see, hey, what's that done to my public? How has that changed things? More so than what you hear from particular individuals, you want to hear how everyone feels about it. So how do you do that without them knowing it? That's part of research, right? I mean, the best type of research, the best type of data I can get is when you don't know that I'm watching you, right? You act most like yourself. So law enforcement is a little bit different. In law enforcement, we're looking at specific targets, right? I want to know about a particular target that poses a risk to some other group, maybe a population, maybe just an individual. Okay? And that's a little bit different. It might result in punishment and loss of freedom. And that's where the rules of evidence must be met. So we're going to have to get a warrant in most cases to be able to get that type of information. And there is a separation between intelligence and law enforcement, or at least there should be, right? But that does become blurred. So law enforcement needs to have rules of evidence. They need to be able to follow that evidence along, be able to prove where they got it, if there was probable cause before they had procured that evidence. Whereas intelligence doesn't need any of that. They just need to listen. It's available for anyone. So should we let, one thing that I think is rather interesting, should we let 100 men, guilty men free to save one innocent man? It really cuts to the heart of this, right? I mean, if we're trying to get data on everyone, right? We're trying to become more effective in finding that one individual. And if we don't do that, we might let a lot of people go free for not gaining all this information for prosecution or whatever it may be. We may let people go free, and maybe that's okay, and maybe it's not. But this is the basis of our criminal justice system, that we would let 100 people go, guilty men go free, or women go free, to save one innocent person. For those that are in criminal justice, we're well aware of this. I mean, our rules of evidence are quite stringent for a reason. We don't want to have an innocent person lose their freedom, and so we set the bar really high, okay, beyond a reasonable doubt, right, for criminal cases. And we set that bar really high because we're willing to let those people go free, those guilty people go free. All right, so data collection, what do we gather? Well, as the NSA revelations have exposed, cell phone data, and that includes texting, emails, chats, video chats, pictures, forum discussions, and that does put you at risk. But we should really delve into how this really works. How does this data procured? And one thing you've got to realize is that we never created the internet under the spirit of having 100% privacy or 100% security. The very inception of the internet, the infrastructure of the internet, was never designed for this. And I'll go over how the internet functions. If you're not familiar with it, I'll briefly go over how it functions. And really, we're all at a certain amount of risk. It's just impossible to have 100%. So how do they function? How do networks function? Well, at the very basic level, we can really think of it as two main parts. We've got nodes and we've got links. Nodes are our computers, each one of our computers. If you've got one attached to your belt or in your bag, that counts as a computer. And the link is what attaches these computers together. So we look at a set of computers and they're attached by some wire. It doesn't necessarily mean they can communicate with each other unless they share a common language. They know how one is going to send information to the other. And once that's established, they can start communicating. And that's where the OSI and TCP/IP. TCP/IP is essentially the language that we're going to use, the basis that we're going to use to send information along from one computer to the next. And so in a local network, I'm going to send from one node, one computer, to another node using a link, a wire, that uses the same language. Just as in English, I'm speaking to English, and everyone here probably understands my English. Now, if I was speaking in a different language, let's say Farsi, you wouldn't understand. Well, that's because we don't have a common language, and TCP/IP is our common language. All right, so here's just a brief illustration of this. So I've got nodes, and I could attach them together, but instead I'm going to attach them to a larger network. Okay, it really isn't much different. It's just that they're all networked together. There's lots of computers that can be available over this network. I just got to be able to go over to whatever computer I'd like to go to. This particular computer happens to be a server. And probably all of you have been onto a website, probably within the last hour. I'm sure all of you have been to a website, right? And a server is a computer that puts out a page. And it includes HTML, images, and links, right? HTML is the language that web pages are written upon. All right, so when I want to go to that particular server, I put in an address that relates to that server. And I go to that server, and the server shows me the page. To do that, though, we need to address. We need to set an addressing. Okay, and right now we use IPv4. Probably in the next 5 years we'll move over to IPv6, which is rather interesting from a law enforcement perspective because it removes some of the anonymity that IPv4 has. So an example network address, and if anyone's played around with networks before, you've probably seen this. If you set up a router, you've had some difficulty, you had to call IT, you might have seen that they want your IP address, right? And your IP address is this string of numbers, and I give the example here, 192.168.1.8. This happens to be a local address. And that's the designation of my computer. If another computer wants to talk to me, they just need to say, okay, send a message to 192.168.1.8. Right? And that's kind of like a home address, right? Just like you have a street, you have the number of your house on that street, the town that you live in, and the city. Addresses work the same way. It just happens to be an IP address. So it wouldn't be possible to go to another computer if it weren't for this addressing system. So when you request a website, a couple of things happen. First of all right, you're going to ask the local domain server here, so DNS here on campus, if you were to try to access a website from here, and ask it, well, I'm looking for this website. Let's say you're looking for Facebook, right? www.facebook.com. A computer doesn't know what Facebook is. It only knows what an IP address is. So we need to have a listing of all the IP addresses that relate to a domain name like facebook.com. So we'll go to the DNS, and the DNS may know, if it's been used in the last 3 days, the DNS is going to know. And Facebook probably has been used on this campus in the last 3 days. I have a funny feeling. So the DNS probably knows what the IP address is. If it hasn't been done in the last 3 days, it goes to a root name server. And the root name server houses all those domain names and their applicable addresses. So you go and ask for that name. You get the IP address. It scoots you over to that particular server. And then that server shows you the web page. Okay? It creates this exchange between the web page and you send along information that would be on that web page. So the HTML, which is the code on that page, pictures, maybe more links, and all those links would likely be on that server, or it could be going to another place, like a link going to, let's say you wanted to go from there to Google. Well, you click on a link, go to Google, and it might say www.google.com, but that doesn't mean anything. We all know that now. So the IP address for Google will then be requested. So a secure transmission is possible. I'm sure all of you have gone onto your bank account or even onto Google. It's SSL, or it usually starts with HTTPS, right? And that is SSL, Secure Socket Layer. It uses it sets a encryption method into the packets. But as I'll talk about briefly later on, that encryption method can be undermined as well. So web servers collect data on any request. So when you request information from, let's say, Google, a website from Google, it records your IP address, it records when you did it, what information that you received from that particular server. This was a request that I sent from here to a server in California. I think it happened to be Popular Science. And you can see here the route is not direct, right? And that's because the route that you take to get to any particular server is not based upon the distance, but based upon the speed at which it can get back to you. And these routes are much faster. I hope no one would ever drive this route to go to California, right? Going way out of your way. But if you were to follow cables, these cables are much faster than if we followed a straight line cable. So what does that mean to us? In the intelligence community, that's a real help for us because we have, in the United States, we have a good number of these cables, these faster cables. So even if another country, if someone in another country was trying to access data in a different country, which might be relatively close to one another, it may very well go through the United States, and that means that we could listen over that network. Now, as I've mentioned, we've got networks that are all calling IP addresses, and anyone can listen on that network. The network was never created to provide that level of privacy or security. So anyone that's broadcasting over a network, everyone can hear it. That you're sending a request to, let's say, Facebook or any website. So why does national security care? Well, we get a lot of information from our target. If it's a particular target we're interested in, whether it's an individual or whether it's a country in whole, we get lots of information. As you can imagine, where everyone's going, what they might be reading, what they might be listening to, what they might be chatting about, right? What they might be emailing about. It's a lot of information that we could use. All right, so we learn things about these nations, and we can use that data to essentially create a picture of that country or that particular person. So we can address it quickly. It might help us in preventing a crime. It might help us in changing the course of history. It's certainly possible. If we believe that there's some political change that's occurring, we might be able to stem it if we have some information. All right. Certainly law enforcement uses this as well. Anytime you're listening over a network, let's say I'm interested here in Connecticut, we just met with the state police recently, and they do a lot of child pornography cases. Now, you might have child pornography on a computer, or a suspect might have child pornography on a computer, and I can obtain the computer, and I can do analysis of the computer and create some evidence and prosecute based on that. But what if he's transmitting information as well? All right. If you're transmitting information, I might want to listen on that network and see where he's transmitting it to. Once I know where he's transmitting it to, maybe I can get more of his cronies, right? And that means a whole lot more prosecution. So it certainly can assist us in a law enforcement capacity. So how do we do this? How do we get all this data? Well, I get data from web browsing, web server client activity, and we talked about that briefly. ISP client activity, how much your ISP, your internet service provider, actually listens to and keeps a good deal of account of. Social networking activity, it's a big thing right now. My wife is hooked on Facebook. I try to get her off. I was like, Facebook, not too good, There's a lot of listening going on. Nah, she's hooked on it. She loves it. And I think for so many people, they can't even get away if they wanted to get away. Software programs can do this as well, where I'm instilling a software program to maybe get data from a computer or off of a network. And then hard drive, and I'm not really going to focus that much on that, but if I know that there's a particular suspect that has a hard drive that might have some evidence I want to prosecute him on, or her on, I get the hard drive and I can recover data. Even deleted data you can recover. That's what we're doing here at the Digital Forensic Investigations Program with computer science and also with criminal justice. That's the basis of many of our prosecutions. We'll obtain a person's computer and then get that data. Even if they attempted to delete it all or destroy the hard drive, we can still recover data. Web browsing. This is probably the simplest method, and that's just to go through the browser history. Now, as many probably know, that you can clear browser history, but I can also recover that browser history. If it's deleted, I can always recover it. So I can recover some of those files within the cache or pictures that are stored within that computer. Windows, in particular, keeps a log of logins and history, and that might help me in a prosecution as well. So I might be able to obtain who logged in at any particular time and then be able to match that up with what activity occurred. Remember, if I'm listening at the ISP, and we're going to talk about that in a second, if I'm listening to that network activity, I still need to be able to say that person's the one that did it, and these logs are the ones that can do that for me. So if a suspect has cleared it recently, I can still recover that information. And software programs are used to obtain those deleted logs. So, and it can also be done remotely, interestingly enough. One of the revelations from Snowden's accounts was that the NSA they're able to put in software without your knowledge that could potentially recover information, and that they do on certain suspects.
So when we clear our internet browser, that's really doesn't mean anything.
Well, right. So it's not viewable for anybody that's using that normal interface. But if you wanted to go and check the deleted files, and that's really through you need a recovery software program to find those logs. but most of them are free now. There's a Linux version called Scalpel you can get for free. The really nice ones, what we use in law enforcement is Encase, and that's because we pay a good deal of money for those because they produce reports that can be used for prosecution. But anyone can get recovery software programs. So not just browser history though, anything on a computer that's deleted, particularly if it's a standard hard drive. So usually if you've got like a 500 or a 1 terabyte hard drive, it's probably a standard hard drive that you're using, not an SSD, which changes things a little bit. Latent data is going to be on that hard drive for a really long time. In fact, there have been a couple cases where someone will buy a hard drive from eBay, a used hard drive from eBay. They'll recover the data from it, get your social security number, get some of your bank account activity or bank account numbers, and they're able to take your money. So, rather unfortunate. Yes?
So if the hard drive is smashed, you don't have any chance of recovering it, or you can with paths that have been established in the past?
It is possible. So let's say someone took a sledgehammer to a...
Thinking of Adam Lanza having, smashed his hard drive just so that there wasn't a way to recover the sites he visited. But can you still find them some other way?
You can still. It's stuck on the hard drive, right? So you've got to piece the hard drive back together again. If you smash with, let's say, a sledgehammer, and the way that a hard drive, a mechanical hard drive works is sort of like platters. If you remember the old record players, same construction, right? So if you smash those platters, if I put those platters together, the only thing I'm missing is the parts that in which the seams would be located, right? Everything else I can piece together. And there are quite a few techniques of putting those back together and then trying to read the data from it. You wouldn't be looking at a standard hard drive. You'd basically be reading with a separate type of head and being able to read that.
You still have to have something like that. You can't figure it out any other way. Let's say you smashed your hard drive, you buried it, you burned it up, it's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
So is it gone forever?
If you did all of that, yeah, what's on the hard drive is gone.
You never know.
If you were listening over network, you could still get whatever they were passing along. Yes?
So if there's a market for recovering stuff, why isn't there a market for making it gone?
There is. There are a couple of ways to do that. There are some government software programs. The government does do this for old hard drives. If they don't want to, they want to sell or they want to get rid of old hard drives. What they'll do is they'll wipe it several times. So there's a couple of different ways of doing this. You can wipe them with all zeros. You can wipe them with all ones. You can do them randomly assigning 0 and 1s each of the spots within a hard drive. And that should wipe it as long as you do it a number of times. So one swipe through won't probably do it. And that's because a regular hard drive is magnetic. It turns a 0 and a 1 magnetically. So there's still some latent information if you just do it once, right? Kind of like if you were using a magnet to move that ferrous material, right? But if you do it 7, 8 times, now you're becoming more sure that it's not recoverable. So there is a market for that. There actually is there's a hard drive. It came out about last year. If you send it a text message, it'll catch on fire or it'll delete itself. So you can imagine, it's supposed to be for military applications, but it's available to the public. You can buy it on Amazon. And it has 2 buttons, one's green, one's red. The green one will delete all the information. The red one will essentially melt it. And on an SSD, it happens to be an SSD, it's not recoverable. So for those that are buying it for personal use, I wonder what's going on that you need to have this. You can, like I said, you can text it and you can say, burn yourself up, and it will. So there is a market for it. And I think with these NSA revelations, they're only more of a market. That market is going to be growing. All right, so what about from the web server? So I want to go on to Facebook or some other website, and what do they know about me? Well, that's pretty small, isn't it? Well, I'll go over this really quickly. I'm requesting information from my web browser, so I type in a URL. You know that relates to an IP address. The server sees that information and sends back the HTML, the basic code that's going to go on that page. After that's done, it's going to request, hey, I need some pictures, I need some links. So the server is going to send along those pictures and links. It sends along a graphical image, and here I've got my image1.jpg or JPG. And then it sends back for another image, and I've got my image 2. And then it sees the request and sends back that graphical image. it displays that image on the website. That's basically how all websites work when you're requesting a page. It changes a little bit with encryption, but that's the basic idea. So what does the web server see? Well, I've got the IP address of who requested it, right? So I can identify at least down to the household who requested that website, when they did it, and when they got each piece of material. So the first one was an HTML, the second one was an image, and the third one was an image, and I see stamps for each one of these. The 200 at the end means that everything went just fine, okay? So your ISP can watch all of this activity. Your internet service provider records all of this activity. Dial-up or broadband receives a unique internet protocol address, that IP address. And that's going to tie at least the owner of that account. So the interesting part about this under IPv4 is that if you're behind a router, okay, like we are right now, if you were to connect your device to the router here, it knows that a web server that's off campus knows that you're coming here from UNH, but doesn't exactly know that you are the one that's requesting it. It knows that a user here at UNH requested it. That's all I could get from the web server. But I could also request information from the IT guys here on campus, and they will gladly turn over information as to who was logging in at that time. So that's why you put in for web authentication, you put in your username and you put in your password. That means I know that you got on at this time and I know where you went. So if law enforcement were to ask a question about who went where, pretty easy to find out. Okay, so an IP address is logged every time there's a search done on every website that is visited. And there are ways, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, of how you can hide an IP address, and that's becoming a growing problem now that the Snowden revelations have come about. So the ISPs can basically examine everything about any individual, or at least any owner, let's say a household or a business. Exact times, dates, and a list of every subscriber who visited a particular website. So email is another concern that came about from the Snowden revelations as well. Email, once considered very secure, has been found to be actually rather insecure. So what do I know when an email is sent? Well, I know the sender, the recipient, and the subject. Okay, that's all logged. And that's logged every time that one is sent. Electronic voyeurism, an interesting thing, is that you can watch over a network, and so the law enforcement can do this, but there are actually commercially available and free programs to do this as well. So let's say you're sitting at Starbucks, anyone can listen over the network at, let's say, Starbucks and find out where you're going, essentially. And that's available for free. A particular program that my students use in my network security class is Wireshark, and you can download it from any operating system. All right, Gmail, Hotmail, Outlooks have vulnerabilities, and they've been found to have essentially backdoors in them. Gmail, which was surprised by the revelations that the NSA could get so much of their information, including information on Google Docs, found out later on that the NSA had put in some interesting pieces of equipment between their servers and then out to the outside world. So they were able to essentially decrypt and then encrypt again as it went by. And then they were able to see all of the information that includes emails and any document information. So how about tracking users? At least 2 years, President Obama made this into law during his last term. 2 years of data has to be collected on every individual. So I know every IP address, every website that anyone has gone to in the last 2 years. You can hold them for longer. The problem with this is that we've got so much data. I mean, it's almost insurmountable how much data we have. It's easy when I'm just looking at one person, but if I'm looking at a community, let's say a whole population, the number of IP addresses that come from this is humongous. So I need to be able to analyze that data. All right, so I can take a look at who's looking at them and also where they're going, what are their interests. So maybe someone looked up, Pfizer, looking up Viagra, rather embarrassing probably for some person. Well, your ISP happens to know that. What about some side effects from mental health medication? Something that we probably hold as being very personal. Well, your ISP can easily figure that out. It doesn't take much, just the IP address, which is all logged. And so you look through these records and you can find a lot about a user, any particular user. Social networking sites, this has also come under criticism. It's amazing how much information is available on social networking sites, and it's all information that the user puts out voluntarily. So information on pictures, there's been some concern of pictures being used for facial recognition software. Really interesting stuff as we move forward. The problem with facial recognition software as it is for law enforcement is that if I have a mugshot of somebody, I've got them looking at the camera under a specific light. But what if they're turned sideways? What if they're walking by me and I want to be able to recognize them using some kind of facial recognition hardware? Well, I may not be able to do that, but with Facebook, I've got maybe every view possible of this person, right? I've got the back of his head, the side, right? Now I've got multiple views of the person. I don't have to get it from just official data. All right, so it has been used. Twitter and Facebook has been used to prosecute users. Facebook has been used to determine attitude. Really interesting. Can we determine attitude based upon a user's, let's say a user's output? So your Twitter feed is a certain perspective, a certain mood. Can I estimate that? Some really interesting work that computer science is working on is if your words, if I can get enough of your words together, the type of words that you use more frequently, can I figure out a bit of your personality? Can I figure out if maybe you're deviant? Can I profile you just with the words that you use more frequently? And that's a big part of this that could be used. All right, so it has been used for bullying, which is I think a great use of this type of data. And law enforcement has requested this information. This is steadily increasing too, and we can expect to as we depend on these devices more and more, these websites more and more. We can expect that we're getting lots of information from every individual, which is particularly pleasing to the NSA and any intelligence or law enforcement body. Software programs, briefly discuss this. We can instill software programs on any one computer. If I have a target computer, somebody's, let's say this MacBook right here, it might be difficult to send it to a large number of computers, but if it's just one computer, it's pretty easy to do if I know the location of that computer. If I can gain physical access to the computer, that's really easy to do, right? With a USB, I can easily get on there. I can procure data if I can get physical access to that computer. Software programs that are used by criminals, accounting, they definitely do that. They use accounting software, and that could be used for prosecution. Programs can encrypt messages, and there are a couple of free programs and pay programs that encrypt information. That can be difficult for law enforcement, particularly if it doesn't have any backdoors. Some encryption programs do have NSA backdoors. It's been revealed. But publicly available encryption programs seem to be fairly secure. So what's the purpose of all this? Like I said before, it's lots and lots of really good information. It could identify a criminal. What's really interesting is I've got to be able to identify that criminal amongst a bunch of law-abiding citizens, right? And the proportion of criminals is going to be far smaller than law-abiding citizens. So just think about this from a statistics point of view. I need a much larger sample to be able to get enough of a good sample of those criminals, right? To know what deviant behavior is. So I need lots of information on those deviant individuals, and to do that, that means a whole lot on the law-abiding ones. So interesting one out of Canada. Met the gentleman that does this in Canada, and he found 16 at-risk behaviors that the police use to figure out if a person might be turning towards, and in his perspective, it was Islamic-based extremism. So you use these 16 factors, and if they hit a certain threshold of these factors, law enforcement paid the kid a visit. Usually it was a juvenile. And they wanted to see what was going on. Was there a reason why the person was making certain connections, making certain changes in their life? Of course, this brings in some ethical considerations. Do we really want law enforcement coming down to an individual, to a juvenile, and ask them questions like this? Is this really ethical? Well, apparently in Canada, it's okay. For right now, it seemed to be useful in certain areas within Canada. And maybe the U.S. might be able to use something like this. But this really enters into sort of pre-crime, right? Before you ever commit a crime, I'm going to pay you a visit and see if maybe you're going in that direction. I think when I say pre-crime, a lot of people think of Minority Report, right? And I don't know if we're going to ever get to that point where before someone ever does anything, I've amassed enough data to be able to say this is so highly likely that we need to detain this person. All right, so how do we accurately predict that? And we can use models to help us accurately predict what might occur. And like I said, we need lots of data to be able to do this. We need both normal and abnormal data. And that abnormal data is going to be in far shorter supply. So I need a much larger sample, right? A really big sample. And if anyone's seen the data house out in Utah, right, the NSA huge building that's basically solid hard drives. I mean, it's enormous. That's the amount of data that you need to be able to figure out who's acting abnormal. So we're going to do what's called forecasting. And forecasting is, it's using statistical models, which we're going to talk about in a second, to essentially say what will happen in the future. And to be able to say that, though, you need to be able to predict a great deal of your fluctuation. All right, so the more variables we have, the more observations we have, that's going to help us in creating good models that are going to be able to have some predictive effect. So that's the reason why we need metadata, because I need so many variables, I need so many observations that's why we need to carry all this data along. So how do we do this? Well, in the very simplest form, some of you might be familiar with this, y equals mx plus b. Remember that from algebra? All right, well, we can use that to create what's called a regression, right? And very simple regression is I want to see the effect of a variable, an independent variable, on a dependent variable. So maybe I want to know how the election is going to sway. Is it going to go, let's say in the United States, is it going to go Republican or Democrat? What might be one variable, a single variable? Anyone have any ideas? What might be a variable? Maybe there was like a scandal recently that was on one side or the other. So scandal for the Republicans, let's say, right? Maybe that'll sway people to the Democrat side. It'd be a very simple one to do. Would that capture enough of the fluctuation? Probably not, right? It will capture some of it. Some people are making those decisions based upon scandals. But what if I were to introduce a lot more variables in it? Let's say if I were to get some more information on the political tide, maybe some information from Twitter as to what people are discussing, what topics people are discussing, how many people are unemployed, what are their issues with unemployment, right? Where are they going to find out where to get employment? Maybe I can instill some information or get some information from that, when they're going on or what they're looking at, what news sites are they looking at, what news articles are they looking at. I can get data from the articles and find out what keywords are being used in those articles that might be inciting them to believe certain things. All right. So what does it tell us? Well, the coefficient's going to tell us the slope. All right. That y equals mx plus b form, that b is, or I should say that m is the slope, how much of an effect it has. The b is actually the intercept, and we changed the model a little bit for statistics, but it's essentially the same form. The greater the slope, the more the effect, right? So if I've got some variable that I'm measuring that's going to find political will, the greater that slope is, the more greater that coefficient is, the more of the effect that it has. And I also have to make sure that it's significant as well. That's going to explain more of the variation in my dependent variable, whatever that may be. Okay, let's say political will for once. And the way we'd read this is that 1 unit increase in the independent variable equals whatever the coefficient is in the dependent variable. That tells me the impact, how much of an impact I'm making. I'm capturing a certain amount of the variation. Okay, how well does this fit? And this is really crucial for metadata because I can put in a ton of variables, but if it doesn't have any impact on political will, the R square is going to represent that, or the adjusted R square. But the R square is going to represent that. How much of the variation am I explaining? The closer I get to explaining all of it, closer to that 100%, the better my model is. And if you're doing modeling for this type of data, you want to get absolutely very, very close to that 100%. That's when you can start doing prediction. If you can get all the variables that are needed to be able to figure out how let's say, political will is going to change in a particular country, or let's say, for instance, what the probability is of someone committing a criminal act based upon their language, based upon what sites they go to. I need lots of data, And I need to be explaining quite a bit of that information. Now, I mentioned that we're going to use more than one variable. So in the last one, in the OLS regression, we're just using one variable. It's not possible for more complex models. We're going to have to use multiple variables. It really doesn't change all that much. Here's my y-intercept. My coefficients are there, and each of my x variables, so those are my actual variables. And here's my dependent variable. And in this case, let's say it's political will, right? And I'm trying to estimate from. I could add tons and tons of variables. The give and take with that is that as I add more variables in, I need to have lots of data to be able to account for those variables, right? So it's called degrees of freedom. I need to have enough degrees of freedom to be able to account for all these variables. And that, like I said before, you need lots and lots of data. So here I've already mentioned these. The stochastic or the error term is what I'm wrong by. And in these models, when I'm doing prediction, I need to be wrong by very, very little. If I want to do forecasting or prediction, I need to be wrong by very little. So this is just a three-dimensional form of it if I was just using three variables. And you can see here that I can figure out some probability of going into that deep blue area, right? And that gives me some idea of how an additional variable from a two-dimensional variable would change the graphical representation of this. But I could add even more into this. And what it does is it keeps adding dimensions to it until I essentially form a model that hopefully is highly predictive. So the models that I've shown here have been linear, but you can easily change them to nonlinear forms too. And much of our life is nonlinear. I mean, if you think about it, the decisions you make are probably not linear. Right? I mean, let's say, just for instance, the value of money, right? As we increase the amount of money that we have, what's the value of that money? The first dollar is worth quite a bit to you, right? The first dollar that anyone remember that when you were a kid? You got that first like $10, you mowed somebody's lawn. That's what I had to do when I was a kid. I mowed that lawn, that $10 was worth so much to me. But as you get more and more money, that $10 doesn't seem as valuable anymore, does it? I mean, if you bring it in a good size paycheck, maybe even $100 isn't that much, or even $1,000 maybe isn't all that much, right? That's the basis of our progressive tax scheme. But it also means that it's a non-linear function too. The amount of money you have is not linear with the amount of value you have for that money. So much of our life is, and we can easily change the model to account for these non-linear functions. So we want to be able to increase our R squared, and metadata would allow for that. By doing even something as simple as a regression, we can utilize this in metadata to hopefully predict upon something. So we might be able to predict economic stability, trends within a population, election outcomes. Really interesting. Like, imagine if you're a president and you've got all this data at your fingertips, right? And you want to make sure that you win the next election. You got this data at your fingertips. I would if I were, I mean, I'd even be tempted. Why don't I run a couple of models and see what I need to say, what I need to do, what news articles need to be out there for people to kind of incline towards me? What's gonna get them to look at me twice? Yeah. I think it is being done to some extent, but I don't think they're using, I don't know if they're using metadata. I can't say for certain that, I don't believe that the White House is using metadata to do this. But there is some tweaking with your mass media, to some extent. Some people are they really believe that there's a whole lot of this, and maybe that's true. I don't know. How much is really unknown. It's said that the Obama administration is quite good at this particular tactic, being able to sway a population. And it's weird to think of us as puppets, huh? But in some way, I guess we kind of are. So election outcomes, what's desired characteristics of a politician. Maybe I need a guy that has more hair, right? I'm probably never going to be. I think for decades we've never had a bald politician win an election. I'm out. So, and that might be part of a regression. And then let's say estimate policy effectiveness. This all falls under what's known as signals intelligence. Not only am I getting information that the user might be sending, but also that they are sending information. Just the data, just the flow itself is very revealing. This is known as traffic analysis. So this all falls under signals intelligence, I think a really great story about this is the capture of the German Enigma machine. Anyone heard about this? This is kind of interesting. Back during the World War II, I shouldn't back then, it's not that long ago, but World War II, the British had taken the German Enigma machine from a captured sub. There's a great movie on this called U-571. They actually credit the Americans, but it's actually the British that did it, us Americans, but it was actually the British that did it. They captured the Enigma machine. The Enigma machine was a form of cryptography that uses a substitution cipher. And at the time, it would have taken quite a bit of time, it would have taken quite a bit of effort to figure out the substitution cipher. So stealing the Enigma machine was absolutely necessary. The Enigma machine allowed for subs, German subs, to be put into position, also had lots of commands that, that these guys had to follow. It really did, stealing this really did change the course of history. It allowed the British to be able to intercept messages between the British commanders and the fleet and figure out where everyone was going and what they were doing. That's massive, that's huge. And that signals intelligence. And if it weren't for that, or if it weren't for the fact that the Germans never found out, or they didn't find out until much later, it would have changed the course of history. The important part about this is if you find out about signals intelligence, it doesn't help you in signals intelligence. And it's part of the perplexing issue with the NSA revelations, is that now that we all know about what's being captured, is that data any good anymore? Is it now biased? So we've got, on one hand, the data is there to serve you better. If you're a law-abiding citizen, you have nothing to worry about. In fact, that data will probably help you. I'm trying to meet your needs. I'm trying to make sure you are happy with your government, that everything is going well, okay? I'm capturing those criminals that might be inflicting harm on you. That's all good things. On the other hand, though, I need to get lots of your information to be able to do it. And the best way to do this is without your knowledge, which, well, has flown the coop at this point, but that's the best way to do it. So I thought this was an interesting video. I'll have you listen to it, and then I'll ask what you think about this.
So I think until we have some better sense and some better grasp on those process concerns, I think it's a bit unfair to have to answer the substantive question in the abstract.
Oh, but it's not abstract. You think we should have the ability to do it or not? I didn't say how to do it. I just said, should we have the ability to do it?
But I think the way we do it matters.
Well, clearly it matters. And being effective matters too. Would you not agree with that?
100%. That's the whole point of the
Make up 5 things that we want to apply to the program. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Agreed.
And I would argue that maybe the fact that we haven't had any complaints come forward with any specificity arguing that their privacy has been violated clearly indicates, in 10 years, clearly indicates that something must be doing right. Somebody must be doing something exactly right.
But who would be complaining?
Somebody whose privacy was violated. You can't have your privacy if you don't know your privacy is violated, right? Can you?
I disagree with that. I mean, I think if the tree falls in the forest, it makes a noise whether you're there to see it or not.
Well, that's a new, interesting standard in the law. Like, we're going to have this conversation, but we're going to have wine, because that's going to get a lot more interesting.
Fair enough.
I want to thank you all. We apologize.
What do you think? I mean, if you didn't know your privacy was being violated, is it violated? I mean, I guess if you're the one that's being listened to, maybe you would feel it, right? But, yeah.
I feel like even though they came out with this, they've been doing this for like, I mean, it's not really a big thing because I feel like people knew that they have been doing this for a long time. No one ever just came out and said, yeah, we're doing it. So I feel like we all kind of knew that our privacy was being violated, even though we didn't know. Like, it was.
I think maybe you did know, but I think for many Americans, this was new information to them, that it was being collected, and to the extent it was collected. If you were listening to those that were saying this, that we were, then you'd be. I think you're absolutely right. There were those that were saying that this information was being collected, that it was possible to collect this information. But what Snowden did was he brought definitive proof of it, and then he brought all the proof about the extent of it. Right? I mean, how vulnerable we were to listening over your emails, even reading your emails. I mean, exact words through your emails. Not that just you were sending them or who you were sending them to, which is rather simple to get, but exact information within those emails. Your Google Docs or your Dropbox, all that stuff is available. I'm not sure everyone was aware of the extent of it, but I guess in some way you should have been. If you're paying attention, I guess you should have been. What do you think? I mean, was this a surprise to anyone?
I mean,
Yeah.
what I hated about what he said was, because if you apply that same logic to, let's say, depraved behavior, like if you were to put a camera in a woman's locker room, and then they didn't know about it. That's like saying, well, how is their privacy being invaded?
That's a good point.
They don't know about it.
That's a good point. I don't know. Yes.
I feel like it's one thing to have your privacy invaded, like with a camera and to be watched, but I feel like as soon as you log into the internet or like a server, like you're agreeing that they can take your information. Not necessarily that we're agreeing to it, but it's not our server. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when you log onto a web page, it's not our web page. It's their web page, so they should, like, they have access to our stuff. So, like, it doesn't surprise me. I don't agree with it, but I feel like it's a little different.
Yeah, I think, so the one perspective is if I'm going onto a web page, let's say Facebook, that they would probably have information about who I am, where I'm coming from, right? But what about if you were sending a text or an email message to somebody? Yes, you're going through their servers. Let's say you're Skyping with somebody, right? You're going through their servers, you're going through the Skype servers to contact somebody. But is your conversation private? You shouldn't expect it to be, by the way. I mean, you're not really just communicating with the person that you're talking to, right? I mean, is that your expectation, that you are just talking to, let's say your friend that's sitting next to you?
I think that's what we think of. Like, yeah, that's what I would think. I wouldn't think that a third party can read into our conversation.
I don't know. But if you didn't know about it, is it a violation of your privacy? Now that you know about it, is it a violation of your privacy?
Yeah, but public and private. So if you're going through a server that's private, and the government, which is public, is listening to that conversation, that's what makes a difference. Now, if I'm going to a government website, and if I'm saying certain things on a government website, that's different. But if I'm going through private servers in the private sector, that should be protected.
I guess in theory, but the way that that we see it is when you go onto the internet and you go onto a website, it's as if you're walking down Main Street and you're going into, let's say, going into a store is kind of like going to a website, and that it's not private, it's public. Anyone listening over your network can see that you're going to that particular website. Anyone listening over the network could potentially see what information you're passing.
You mentioned before, though, about being able to listen in and the software, and the students have the software. So,
Yeah, so sometimes,
able to use that legally? Is that legal? We can all just use that and listen to each other?
so the way that I do it here in the classroom, and my students have been told that they must do it this way, is that you have to do it in a closed network. So here on campus, the IT guys have graciously provided me a sterile environment. I have my own network, and my students go on a separate network that's not shared with anybody else. And we listen over the network. So when a student goes onto a website from that network, we can see where that person is going. So that program happens to be Wireshark that we use, and I can see where you're going. I can even filter out where you're going to by IP address or by the type of interface you're using. I can see just those messages that are being sent, those packets that are passing by over a network. So yeah, that's publicly available. That is insulated. I mean, I do it in insulated. Could you do it on you're actually certainly legally able to do that on your home network. So I do that on my home network. If I think something's going on with my house, then something going on with my home network, I'll listen over the network and see what packets are flying by and where they're going. You're able to do that, but you shouldn't be going to Starbucks and listen to it. But can anyone do it? Yeah. Sadly, anyone can do it.
The quick trip that you
All right.
received today.
All right, so Snowden's impact, rather interesting part about this is that anonymity software and awareness has really compromised data collection in some way. Anonymity software, one method is a software program called Tor. Tor, what it does is it hides the IP address by going through several servers. It's called the onion network, and just like an onion, each server acts to hide a person's identity. Recently, there was a big bust of Silk Road, which is sort of like the Amazon of drugs, right? You can go on there and you can click on how many pounds of marijuana you want and put it in your cart and pay for it. And they were able to do this out in the open because everybody was anonymous. So there's the dark side of that, right? And Silk Road, at least the first version, has been taken down. Silk Road 2 is apparently on its way. So we'll see how that turns out. But that use, the use of Tor has increased significantly. And we must decide if this is really worth it to us. So I've shown you how this data can be used. I've shown you why we need to be able to get all this data, but is it worth it to you to get this data? Is it really there to serve you, and do you want it to serve you? All right. There's been some discussion about fragmentation. Brazil and Germany have been discussing making their own intranet, if you will. The servers in Germany would be only accessible by computers within Germany. Maybe there would be some way out, but you'd have to agree to be able to go out. That would, of course, fragment the entire internet and may induce repression, prevent that freedom of expression. But then the other question is, has the NSA already done that anyway? I mean, if you believe that you're being watched, is there a certain amount of repression that you feel? And some reporters have said that they don't feel comfortable doing what they did before, sending emails like they did before with confidential informants. But that's something that we'll all have to decide. And it's a rather interesting part of these NSA revelations. What do we do with this now that we know we're being spied on? And then how good is the data? Yes?
Well, because you were talking earlier about like how you filter stuff out to look for stuff. Isn't that what they're doing? They're just looking for keywords. They're not really like sitting there like are they just looking for some keywords like, you know, obviously like bombs and killings and murder, like, I mean, or like, you know, the Casey Anthony case, how they went in her computer and they kept seeing like whatever chemical she used, which I think is chlorophyll or whatever, on her daughter. And I mean, it showed up, I think, what, 197 times on there. So like, aren't they just looking for the keywords? They're not really sitting there listening to the entire conversation, right?
Well, that's part of this, is that we have to trust them to use the keywords, and then the keywords that we think are okay, right? But they're probably going to use whatever keywords they want. But it's not limited to just keywords. It's also where you go and many other things that you may say, what you may text, what you may say in a phone call. I mean, take a part of your phone call. Could it be misconstrued in some way? Is that enough to get you a visit? And is that okay? I think we all have to decide this. Whether a visit by the FBI is okay if you made a search of, let's say, I constantly look up, I teach Homeland Security and Terrorism, so I'm looking up, you know, different info, I'm looking up, you know, bombs and showing pictures of bombs to my students, and so they get an idea of, you know, what this stuff looks like, right? I'm surprised I don't have more visits from the FBI. But they might have gotten to know me. They know this is what I do for a living. I was a bomb technician in my previous life. They know they already have me in enough FBI files. They probably can get me anytime they want. But all of you, though, have to decide. I guess the entire American population has to decide whether it's worth it. And the world, really, because so many of those servers are here in the United States. The whole world, I guess, has in some way a right to say whether the NSA can listen or not, and whether it's worth it to them. But I'm not sure everyone understands how this can actually benefit everybody. If I have enough data, I could serve you better if I want to, right? I'm willing to take any questions that you have. Yes?
Earlier on in your talk, you talked about there's going to be another internet, 6 digits or something like that. You said they're changing from, what was it, 3 to 9 or something?
Yeah, IPv4 to IPv6. So IPv4, if you notice 192.168.1.8, right? There was essentially 4 sets of numbers. Under IPv6, it'll be increasing to 6 sets of numbers. We're actually running out of 4 set numbers. All of your phones gets an IP address, and that we never thought we'd run out of IP addresses back when it was when the internet was first created, but we certainly have. So the way that IP addresses are assigned right now is that under a router, which is where we are right now, let's say we've got a router in this room, anyone that's connected to it is getting an IP address from that router. And then the router has one IP address out. So let's say you go to Facebook, you have an IP address under that router, but everybody looks the same after that router and goes out to the server, right? Under IPv6, everyone gets an individual IP address. So I know that you went to Facebook at a certain time, and I don't have to go through UNH to find out from its IT department that you went through this particular router. I can find out individually that a person was accessing it. That's a big problem for law enforcement under IPv4. It's called, under routers, it's called a NAT table. Under NAT, it hides all the users behind the router. But if I want to figure out if someone within that household is sending some type of information that I need to get them on, I don't know who in the household has sent it. I only know it's somebody in that household. Under IPv6, I would know that it at least came from this computer, which is attached to a MAC address. All right? A MAC address is a hardware level address. So I know that this computer sent that message at this time. And if I can do that, at least it's one step closer to getting the perpetrator. There was a case 2 years ago where a kid was stealing the internet of his next door neighbor and sent a threatening message to President Obama. The Secret Service broke down his neighbor's door and threw him on the ground, took him into custody, and the neighbor had to explain how he didn't put a password on his router, and the neighbor boy was able to get in. Luckily, they were willing to hear him out. But imagine if you were the one that's on the floor that has to explain that, no, I didn't send that message even though it came from my router. Now, that's something that we'd be able to deal with much better under IPv6. But it seems like the US is the one that's lagging behind. There's quite a few other countries that are ready for IPv6, but we have so much infrastructure built around IPv4 that it's hard for us to move forward. Some are estimating between 5 and 10 years out. Sort of sad. It'd be nice if it could be rolled out right away. Your operating systems that you're getting now all have IPv6 capability, but I need to get them all. Those XP machines, they don't usually have IPv6 capabilities, so yes.
I mean, there's pros and cons of that because I was concerned before, like exactly what you're saying about a lot of people accessing a particular server or ISP, but you don't really know exactly what it is. But on the flip side, if you can be identified as 52793, then I could just be simply watching you all day. So
That's true.
there's all. I mean, all of this is really just like double-edged swords and everything. So, but I think based on the question that you asked, how we have to make these decisions for ourselves, at least we know the specificity now a lot more to be able to make these decisions.
Right.
And to talk to our elected officials about these things, and this is how we want to. Because I mean, the average person still doesn't even know how the internet works, so we're still learning about these things. I mean, we're in a really fast-growing technological age, and even people that have all different types of devices, they don't know exactly how it works. They know how to use them. So I think what's good about the situation is Snowden, although I'm a little concerned about how he did it. At least now, like I said, we know for sure, and we can ask more specific questions and be a lot more specific in regard to how we want to proceed, maybe. I tell you though, what does concern me though is the fragmentation of the internet, because they do that in China anyway, don't they?
What they do is they filter out, yeah, but there are ways around it. That's why Tor was first created. Tor, that anonymity software, hides an IP address so that filters like China would be using wouldn't be able to capture it. It would never know where you were coming from or where you were going to. So that's why we have that. But if they truly did make it insulated, that is, it's what we call an air gap, right? Where there's no connection to the outside world, then they would have their own internet, and we wouldn't be able to get in, and they wouldn't be able to get out.
Yeah, that would be extreme repression.
That would be. I think so. I mean, unless you're a very, very kind ruler, I can't imagine. Yes.
Well, it's not that we should be like surprised at our own country, but like different countries are doing it to their own country. So if they're not really doing anything about it, then why should we be so concerned? If other countries are doing the same exact thing, and the thing is that other countries have been watching us as we have been watching them, because that's another thing that came out. And so it's kind of like everyone's doing it. So
Yeah, they've got the big top five, and they all do listen. Certainly they do. I think we have the most to gain from it, though, because we have so many of the servers and so many of those large infrastructural lines coming through the U.S. that we get to listen to everybody, probably more than most other countries. From an international perspective, I completely agree with you. The only thing is that it's the person on the ground that maybe doesn't understand how the internet works, but still uses their device to go onto whatever server to meet their needs, to go shopping, to connect with their family and friends. You know, do they have a right to know? But that's not good data. If you know, that's not good data, right? So that's the paradox of all of this. Anything else?
Questions?
Yeah, why didn't Snowden flee to Russia?
Yes.
Why did you choose Russia? And I'm concerned that why would they, quote unquote, our allies, allow him to come in with them? And that's what really concerned me the most.
I don't think Snowden intentionally, I mean, when he first thought of going somewhere, I don't think he thought of Russia. He was supposed to go through Russia and then I believe to Venezuela, if I remember correctly. But he got stuck. He ended up in that airport for quite some time and he couldn't get out. So he chose Russia because they accepted his application for asylum. And they said basically he met all the categories. Our relationship with Russia has gone a little bit cold, and this was pre-Snowden too. Relations with Putin has become a little bit cold, and I don't think it's been this bad since the Cold War. And this certainly doesn't help. It doesn't surprise me, but what does surprise me is that he got a job there too now. So, and he's actually in IT, so he's still working in the biz. He's probably doing okay. Hopefully.
That's what I think really concerned me the most, how much they accepted him into the society. And obviously that, that must have come with
You know what's interesting is that 60% of Europeans think of him as a hero and not a traitor. I don't know if that's any different in the U.S. I don't know where to categorize him personally. On a personal note, I have no idea where to categorize him. I'm kind of torn. As a statistician, I would like to have this information as secret as possible because it's good data. On the other side, though, I guess as a criminal justice member, I don't feel that it meets the level of ethics that I would normally expect out of a policy. So I think this is one of the costs. Personally, I think this is one of the costs of having lots of members in these agencies, non-criminal justice, because our criminal justice students learn the very basics of, not just the very basics, but from a very early time in their education, they comprehend the rules of evidence, the need for privacy, the need for confidentiality, and the rights that you have. And when you hire members that are not in criminal justice or don't have a criminal justice background, I think you miss something. And they kind of go over it like, oh yeah, we're supposed to meet those rules of evidence, or we're supposed to allow for this level of privacy. I think we go over that. That's one of the costs of not having enough criminal justice folks in those agencies. I don't remember if you remember, about a decade ago, I think this has changed, I hope it has changed. About a decade ago, it seemed like lawyers and those within business were more likely to get into the FBI or the NSA or the CIA. And I think this is the cost of some of that, because we don't get the opportunity to teach them what's really important, first and foremost. So, yes?
So anyone can be found through, like, just a router? Because what if you're connected to, like, a Starbucks router, and there's a lot of people, like, how do you find that, like, one suspect? Like, how, if they're there and then they leave and they're not using it anymore, is, like, enough information on your software alone that can...
It's actually on the hardware side. It's actually on the router. It records your MAC address when you attach to a router. So all you have to do is identify that MAC address with that computer. So let's say I'm looking for an individual that sent a message at a Starbucks, right? Go to Starbucks, get the MAC address, and then try to find that person and match the MAC address with it. Now, you're right. I would be looking at the whole space of all people. And if you're really good at this, it's very difficult to find you. But that means never connecting to anything other than a public router. So you're going to like McDonald's, a Starbucks to connect. You're never connected to your home router. You're never directly connecting to an ISP. and then you'd be able to hide your MAC address. Interestingly, there was a Russian or an American spy that was captured in Russia, and the CIA had given instructions for this person to turn a person into a double agent, a Russian scientist into a double agent, and it gave instructions as to how to hide IP addresses. It's a really interesting letter if anyone wants to look it up. I think it's on Russian Times, and it exposes this letter that basically tells you how to buy a computer, how to use that computer to hide your information, and to do this rather well, so that not even our own intelligence agencies can find you. I think it's ironic because most of our law-abiding public would never do these things. I mean, buy your computer off of Craigslist in cash, right? Never connect to a router that would be able to place you, right? So all public routers. Don't use that computer for anything else. Never use your real name on that computer. Only use one Gmail address and make that Gmail address not associated to your name. Use completely different information. And if you fail at doing that, keep trying until Gmail allows you to. These are the instructions on that letter. So if you really wanted to be nefarious, you certainly could be by following these directions that even the NSA, or actually it was the CIA that told you how to do it, right? So we're collecting a lot of information. I just wonder how much of it is really good information. I'd like to think that criminals are using the internet as I expect them to, but I fear that a lot of them are using the directions that the NSA has or the CIA has already given them. So if you wanted to, you could hide your information. Hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions? Yes.
If the CIA has given information on how to hide the address, how come they don't have what you might call an antidote to undo that?
That's a good question. They told this particular person to use an email address, to send information to a particular email address. From that email address, they might be able to figure out who that individual that was sending that original email was. I mean, it is certainly possible. There's a way to view emails where you can see where the sender's IP address is. At least come down to the server, so at the Starbucks or the McDonald's, that you know your informant is a good conformant. But anyone could do it. If you know a specific target, there certainly could be an antidote. With enough information, you could probably figure out who it is if you're at the right place at the right time. But for the general user, if you buy your computer from Craigslist in cash and you're willing to hide your information on that computer, use it only for the purposes of sending whatever emails that you'd like to send, and it's possible to get away with it.
Don't go to the same Starbucks more than once.
That would be probably advisable, yeah. Use multiple locations, yeah.
Thank you very much. It's been very interesting.
Thank you.